I would say the main drivers of SPO are a multitude of things. It's about economic control, it's about quality control, it's about efficiency, effectiveness, it's about creating systems that enable and drive innovation. In every industry in the world, the quality of the product is a direct result of the quality of its supply chain. That is something that exists in all other industries and is well understood, right? They have terms for this. It's called supply chain management. It's called sourcing. We've decided to call it SPO, or supply path optimization, and that's fine. But they all set out to accomplish the same fundamental goal, which is improve the quality of the outputs for the purposes of driving differentiation. Now, in our industry, I think the kind of priority of the ingredients within that can and should differ marketer to marketer. It should align with what makes them different. So some marketers are going to rely on a supply chain that helps enable bespoke innovation. Others may rely on a supply chain that focuses on efficiency and low cost. So they should align their supply chain with what is differentiating and unique to them, and that is the right path. But ultimately, it's about improving those outputs for the sake of driving differentiation.
I think SPO probably means different things depending on the format or the industry. Can you talk to me about SPO in terms of CTV and how it's different than in other formats?
So I don't think it is fundamentally different, right? The goals are still the same. Create as effective a supply chain as you can, use that to drive differentiation, and also use it to drive the industry towards things that you may value as a company. Now, the good news in CTV is that we are starting very far ahead, right? Because all of the work that we've done over the last 5 years in other formats work well within CTV. So we've done a ton of work to create tools that give marketers full transparency into what they're buying, full transparency into how they're buying that. And again, all of those tools work well within connected television, right? So CTV applications have app ads.txt files, sellers.json files, supply chain object, all of that exists within CTV. And so I think we have a much larger toolkit than we did in other formats. And I think we have a lot of lessons learned from those other formats. So I think we know where we want this to end up. So that's the good news. The challenge that we're working through is that a lot of the signals that those tools require to be effective are still in process of being fully sent. And I think historically, a lot of that was technical challenges. So we've all been working on putting the technical systems in place to enable all of the platforms to speak to each other, to communicate those signals. And I think we've done a good job of that. The remaining challenges are more business challenges, right? So there are some ad network business models out there where I think they don't want marketers to have transaction level transparency. And then publishers certainly withhold certain signals for certain deal types. So they sort of use it as a way to invite marketers to work more closely with them. But I think we're making progress, again, month by month, if not week by week. The portion of inventory that I think is meeting those requirements has grown dramatically over the past year. And so I think we're making good progress.
Is the macro environment, the broader macro environment impacting SPO and CTV?
I think the answer is yes, and probably pretty dramatically so. So some of the largest marketers in the space have made it clear that programmatic is their preferred technology for buying and transacting CTV. And they've made it clear that the vast majority of their budgets, if not all, are going to be allocated towards publishers and supply paths that offer complete transparency. And so I think we have to make progress. And what we've observed over the last 2 quarters is that the amount of inventory that does meet those requirements has hit a point where those marketers can execute large-scaled budgets and hit their KPIs. And I don't think that was possible a year ago. And I've noticed, or I've observed that in previous formats over the past 5 years, that once you hit that point, it is a bit of a tipping point. And marketers start to gain confidence thereafter and move very quickly towards allocating significant budgets and making progress. So I think momentum is going to pick up, and I think the macro is only going to fan that flame, right? We've learned over the past 2 years that marketers value flexibility, they value transaction level transparency, and they value moving to models that give them measurement at, again, a transaction level. So programmatic has done very well in this environment, and I suspect that the next year or two will accelerate all of that further.
So it seems like recently the conversation around supply path optimization has expanded beyond just sort of ROI and KPIs, which you mentioned. Can you talk about that evolution?
How money is spent drives the priorities in our ecosystem, right? So what is important is signaled through how money is spent. So if we want an ecosystem that is inclusive, if we want an ecosystem that is sustainable, if we want an ecosystem that withholds high quality journalistic standards, there is no greater tool to drive progress on those fronts than SPO. SPO is about giving marketers control over how they steer spend. Of course, for the purposes of campaign performance, efficiency, KPIs, but also to a growing degree to help drive progress towards the things and the values that are important to those companies. This is one of the reasons that I'm still excited about SPO 5 years later. I've had the pleasure of observing large marketers, I think, start to realize the power of SPO in pushing forward the things that are important to them. And we've experienced some, I think, tremendous progress as a result. And I can't wait to see what they do over the next year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.